A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on this Cricket South Africa Level 1 umpiring course hosted by Western Province Cricket Umpiring Association. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp, and my co-presenter for this evening will be Tom Mokarosi. The format of tonight's lecture will be as follows. I will cover laws 12, 13, 14, and 15. I will then hand over to Tom, who will cover laws 15 and 16. We will then open the floor for Q&A after that. So to kick off this evening's laws, law 12 deals with start of play and the cessation of play. So law tells us that the call of play, and this call of play is now, and I'll use an example. The first day of our test match starts at 10 o'clock. So at 5 to 10, the umpires will take the field, then the fielding side, then the batting, then the batters. Everyone will get ready. Batters will take their mark. Bowlers will mark their run-up. And as soon as we 10 o'clock, the umpire then needs to call play. This call of play will indicate the start of the match. Similarly, same process will be followed after any interval or interruption. So after lunch, 5 minutes before the end of the lunch interval, umpires will take the field, and just before play start or just before the bowler starts his or her run-up, the umpire to call play. And that play indicates the start of the game or the start of the session, or after an interruption, for example, rain, the start of the session after the interruption. Similarly, as the umpires needs to call play to indicate the start of the match or the session, umpires also need to call time on the call, on the cessation of either play at the end of the day or cessation of play before any interval or interruption, or even at the conclusion of the game. I'll use one example. When we get to our lunch interval, let's say, is at 12 o'clock. So we get to 12 o'clock and the final ball gets bowled. Umpire looks at his or her watch, sees at 12 o'clock. Umpire will then call over, time, and lunch. So once the umpires call time, law tells us that the bails to be removed from both wickets. So at our lunchtime, umpires now called over, time, and lunch. Umpires at the bowler's end needs to remove the bails. Similarly, the umpire at the striker's end also needs to go and remove his or her bails at the striker's end. When do we start a new over? So if I use our session as an example, our test match starts at day 1. Our first session starts from 10 till 12. So you need to bowl as many overs as you can between 10 and 12. Now, the law tells us, let's say lunch is at 12 o'clock. So now we get to 11:58. Can we take lunch? No, we cannot take lunch yet because it's still 2 minutes to go in the session. So we need to start a new over. So now what the law say in terms of starting a new over is, let's say we get to 11:59. You call over and you look at your watch and you see it's 11:59. It's now a minute to go till your lunch interval. Now law tell us, for you to start a new over, what now needs to happen, and if you can visualize this, so at 11:59, the bowler's in umpire will call over. He or she looks at the watch and sees it 11:59. Cannot call lunch yet. But now law tell us We will start a new over if the strikers in umpire now starts walking towards the bowler's end, and the strikers in umpire needs to walk at normal pace. Shouldn't be running towards the bowler's end, nor should the strikers in umpire, take small steps or slowly to get to the bowler's end. Normal pace, as you said, did throughout the session. So walking at normal pace, the strikers in umpire has now arrived behind the stumps at the bowler's end, and if that is and if the strikers in umpire comes to behind the stumps at the bowler's end before 12 o'clock, a new over needs to be started. But if the umpire does not get to behind the stumps at the bowler's end before 12 o'clock, the umpire now needs to call um, time and lunch. Completion of an over. So other than at the end of the game, the law tells us that if the agreed time for an interval is reached during an over, you always need to complete the over, and there is an exception, and we'll get to it now. So what this means is our lunchtime is at 12 o'clock. So now you get to 12 o'clock and you've only bowled 3 balls. Do you take lunch? No, you don't take lunch, even though you've reached 12 o'clock, but you only bowled 3 balls of that particular over. The law tells us you need to complete that over, even though you've reached 12 o'clock, but you need to complete the over. And after the over is completed, after you've bowled the 3 balls, like in my example, only then would you take lunch. And let's say you complete the 3 balls at 12:02, then you'll call over, time, and lunch. And then now your lunch interval will be 40 minutes from 12:02, because that is when you call time. And the first ball after lunch needs to be bowled at 12:42. So we know we need to complete the over. There is an exception. What is that exception? So the law tells us if we get to less than 3 minutes to go to the interval, and either batter is dismissed, or a batter retires, or players needs to leave the field of play, if this happens, then you need to take lunch. I'll use an example to illustrate this. Our lunch is at 12 o'clock. At 11:58, a batsman is dismissed on the, let's say, the 4th ball of the over. 4th ball, batter is clean bowled at 11:58. So what happens next? It's now 2 minutes to go till 12 o'clock. Should the new batter come in and face the remaining 2 balls? The law tells us no. If it's less than 3 minutes, you will then take lunch immediately. In our case, it is less than 2 minutes because it's 11:58 and there are 2 minutes to go to lunch. So you'll take lunch immediately, and our lunchtime will be 40 minutes. So from 11:58 till 12:38, the first ball needs to be bowled. And that 2 balls that's still remaining, that 2 balls needs to be completed at the resumption of play after the interval. So once you come back from the interval, the bowler that took the wicket, there's still 2 balls left in the over. That bowler to start off the lunch, to bowl that 2 balls to the new batter, and to complete the over. The last hour of the match. And what is this concept in modern cricket? We will go into this concept of the last hour of the match in detail in our level 2 and our level 3 courses. But I'll just give you a quick explanation what this concept is of the last hour of the match and how many overs needs to be bowled in this last hour. So this last hour of the match refers to the last day of the match and the last hour in the last day of the match. Let's use our 5-day test match as an example. Our playing times are from 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock, and our test match spans over 5 days. So this last hour refers to day number 5, the last hour of day number 5. So if our cessation time is 5 o'clock, this last hour of the match will span from 4 o'clock till 5 o'clock, and there needs to be a minimum number of overs to be bowled in that last hour. So let's see what the law tells us. The law wants in that last hour a minimum of 20 overs to be bowled in that last hour, a minimum. So from 4 o'clock till 5 o'clock, 20 overs must be bowled. So if it starts at 4, and let's say we get to 5 o'clock, and the fielding side has only bowled 15 overs, play needs to continue until 20 overs are bowled as per the laws of cricket. So this law was brought into the game because what happened in many games before this law became effective, um, let's say the batting side was close to victory, but it was also close to the end of the game. The fielding side then um, slowed the game down. They tried to bowl as little overs to the batting side as possible for them not to reach the victory target. So the lawmakers decided for the fielding side that slowing the game down, then that was the main reason why they brought in this concept of in your last hour of the match. It can only happen in a 5-day test match on day 5. And our last hour will be from 4 o'clock till 5 o'clock. If it's a 4-day provincial game like we play in Cricket South Africa, the last hour will be on day 4 from 4 o'clock till 5 o'clock. So you must bowl a minimum of 20 overs in the last hour. That is just the concept of the last hour in a nutshell. Again, in level 2 and level 3, we will go into detail about the last hour and what happens if there is rain in the last hour, if there's interruption in the last hour, if there's an innings change in the last hour. We'll go into detail. So the conclusion of the match. When is the game concluded? According to the law, as soon as the result is reached, the game is concluded. Soon as, let's say, side B needs to score 200 in the 4th innings to win the game, and they get to the score of 200, the result is reached. The law now tells us as soon as they get 200, the match is concluded. Match is also concluded as soon as both the minimum number of overs in the last hour are completed and we've reached the agreed time for close of play. So I mentioned in the previous slide, a minimum of 20 overs needs to be bowled in the last hour. So in our test match from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, you need to bowl 20 overs. So let's say we get to 5 o'clock and the fielding side has bowled 20 overs, then the match is concluded if a result was not reached. We'll get to point number 3 that speaks about if there's an agreement under law 13. In our next law, we will cover law 13.1.2. And this says as soon as the final innings is completed, the match is also concluded. Also, lastly, when is the match concluded? If the players needs to leave the field due to adverse conditions, whether it's ground, weather or light, and there's no further play possible. Example of this, let's say we've our 5-day test match. We have team B needs 300 to win. Team B is at, let's say, at 15:30, Team B is 150 for the loss of one wicket, but they need 300 to win. So at 15:30 it starts to rain. Rain continues up until 5 o'clock. So now we've reached our cessation time of 5 o'clock. Team B, the target score is 300. Team B is only on 150 for one. So now we haven't reached the result. So, and we've reached our sensation time on day 5. There's no further play possible. So now this match is also concluded. Law 13, which covers the innings. So in more day cricket, like our test match, it usually spans over 2 innings per side. The law actually allows for more day cricket to be played over 1 innings, but that agreement is reached before the game starts. So the law allows for either more day cricket to be played over 1 innings or to be played over 2 innings. And in Test match cricket, it's played over 2 innings. In Cricket South Africa's provincial competition, it's also played over 2 innings. But the law allows for it for even a 1 innings game to be played in more day cricket or time cricket. So now we know the law allows for either 1 or 2 innings. Then now the law allows for you to put a limit to these innings. So before I get to the limit, so in Test match cricket, that spans over 5 days, and that where 2 innings are played per side, there are no limits in place. So side A can bat in their first inning as long as they want. Similarly, side B in their first innings, same principle applies to the second and the third innings. There are in Test match cricket no limit in terms of overs for the first or second innings for both sides, nor is there any limit for the second nor is there any time limit for each innings. But point number 2 tell us that there is you can have a limit to the number of overs per innings, or you can limit an innings to a period of time. Example of this, many years ago, when in the Western Cape here in South Africa, we still played 2-day cricket. So our 2-day cricket was more innings cricket. It's 2 innings per side. It spanned over 2 Saturdays. So let's say Saturday, the 1st of December, there will be day 1. And the following Saturday, the 8th of December, will be day 2. So what the playing condition said is that when it comes to the first innings, it is limited to 60 overs per side. So as soon as side A has batted for 60 overs, that innings is then concluded. Side B then needs to go bat. And there was no limit on the second innings. So that's an agreement, that's a playing condition for this particular competition that put a limit to the first innings of 60 overs per side, and there was no limit in the second innings. Similarly, some competitions put limits to both innings, where they'll say, in your first innings, you can only bat 50 overs per side. So side A can only bat 50 overs, side B then also bat 50 overs in their second innings. But then they also put a limit in the second innings, where they say, let's say you can only bat for 75 overs in your second innings, and that same limit applies or that same limit will apply to both sides. These agreements or these playing conditions are set out before the time by the governing body. So the law allows for this flexibility where we can limit 2 overs, and even to time. You can say there will be a time limit on, let's say, the first innings, where each side can only bat a maximum of 3 hours in their first innings. So side A bats for 3 hours, and then that innings is concluded. Then side B will then go bat for 3 hours for their first innings. This is an example of how the law allows for a bit of flexibility in terms of number of overs per innings or period of time per innings. So I've mentioned that once you put these agreement in place, so even a one innings match, agreement needs to be put in place for both innings. You cannot have, say, yeah, side A, you can bat for 60 overs, and side B, you can bat for 80 overs. It needs to be exactly the same for both innings. I've mentioned where in a two innings games you can put restrictions on the first innings, or on the second innings, or on both. The law allows for that. Law also tells us that in a two innings match, teams needs to alternate their innings. Side A needs to go bat, and if side A is dismissed, then side B needs to go bat. Then again, side A will bat in their second innings, and then after that, side B. You cannot have, let's say, captains come to you and say, Captain, you can bat your two innings in one go. Let's say you bat your first innings and your second innings, and then we'll bat our first and our second innings. No, the law doesn't allow for that. The law wants those innings to be alternated. So side A first in their first innings, then B in their first innings, side A second innings, side B second innings. There are two exceptions, and they are the follow-on, or if a team forfeit an innings, and we'll get to that law in later this evening when I do law 14 and law 15. So earlier we dealt with when is a match concluded. Now we're going to deal with when is an innings completed. So it's a difference. The few slides ago, we spoke about when is the game done, when is the game over, when is the match finished, concluded. Now we're going to cover when is the innings concluded. So law tell us that a side's innings is to be considered completed if side A is all out. Let's say side A went into bat and the fielding side takes 10 wickets. Side A is then all out. That innings of side A is completed. The side innings is also completed if at the fall of a wicket or if a batter retires, there are balls remain to be bowled, but no further batter is available to come in. An example of this, side A went into bat in their first innings. The opening batter got hit on the thumb and left the field to have the injury looked at. After the physio checked the injury, the opening batter's, let's say, thumb was fractured, and he or she is not able to partake further in the innings. So now, because the opening bat is not able to resume his or her innings, so now you'll get to, now the 9th wicket fell. So now the side is 9 wickets down, but because the opening batter is not able to take further part in the innings due to a fractured thumb, even though the side is now 9 down, and the batting captain indicated that the opening batter is not coming out to bat due to the fractured thumb, that side, even though 9 wickets down, that innings will also be completed. An innings is also completed if a captain declares an innings close, and we'll get to a declaration when I cover law 14. When a captain forfeits an innings, that forfeiture is also seen as a completed innings, and we'll get to it when we do law 15. We spoke in earlier slides about if there's an agreement before the game starts, where it's by the usually by the governing body, where they limit the amount of overs in the first innings, let's say to 60 overs per side in the first innings, or if there's been a time limit to either the first innings or the second innings. If there's playing conditions set out by the governing body where they do put these limitation in place in terms of overs or time, so law tell us, so as soon as the prescribed overs as agreed to by the governing body before play started. If that number is reached, the innings is also completed. I'll use an example to illustrate this. So in our local competition in the Western Cape, where the playing condition states that 60 overs to be faced by both sides in the first innings. So as soon as 60 overs was reached, and even though, let's say, side A is 300 for a loss of 2 wickets, but as soon as 60 overs is completed, that innings is completed, because that is what the playing condition that's been put in place. The prescribed number of overs of 60 has been bowled. So the same principle will apply to time. So when it comes to the toss, what does the law say? Who needs to be at the toss? Where does the toss needs to take place? What are the timings of the toss? So in terms of the toss, law wants the captains to toss for the choice of innings. Where does it happen? All law tell us it happens on the field of play. So anywhere inside the boundary, that's where the toss can take place. But we do know the custom, the tradition of cricket. The toss actually takes place right next to the match pitch on the square. That is custom, that is tradition, where the toss takes place. But the law tells us doesn't have to take place on the square next to the match pitch. It can take place anywhere on the field of play. Who needs to be at the toss? One or both umpires needs to be at the toss. Sometimes it's not possible for both umpires to be there, but the law wants at least one umpire to be at the toss. So when is the toss, or what are the timings of the toss? There's a window period that the toss can take place. There's a 15-minute window period, and law tells us not earlier than 30 minutes, not later than 15 minutes before play is about to start. So let me give you an actual example of when this window period is. So our test match on day 1 starts at 10 o'clock. So that the window period that the toss needs to take place is between 9:30 and 9:45. That is the window period. So it can take place anytime between 9:30 and 9:45. Can it take place 9:29, 9:28? No, it cannot. Window period hasn't opened yet. Can it take place at 9:46, 47? No. Usually, and in practice, if I can use test match cricket as an example, the toss takes place at 9:30, half an hour before play start, which is fine. The law tells us that it is still within the window period, no problem. Can the toss take place at 9:30 or at 9:40? Of course it can. Doesn't have to be at 9:30. It's usually at 9:30. So just to recap, and this is in green, so there is a question in the exam related to the toss. So who needs to be there? Both captains. At least one umpire. Preferably both, but at least one. Where does it need to take place? Anywhere on the field of play. But customary, it happens next to the match pitch. What is the window period for the toss? Between 9:30 and 9:45. If it's a 10 o'clock start, it's a 15-minute window period. Then the law tells us, so now the toss has taken place, and let's say captain of side A wins the toss. Now the law wants the captain winning the toss to notify the opposition captain immediately. Captain cannot tell you, umpire, just wait, I quickly want to go chat with my team or with my coach. I'll get back to you. No, law wants the captain needs to have had that conversation before coming to the toss. So at the toss, as soon as the whichever captain wins it, that captain needs to notify the opposing captain immediately. And once notified, that decision cannot be changed. So once the captain says, I'm going to bat, and now we walk off the field, and now we off the field, and now the captain said, no, I'm changing my mind. No, sorry, unfortunately, you've made your decision to, let's say, to bat. Once notified, cannot be changed. The follow-on. What is this concept of the follow on in cricket. And this happens in modern cricket. And I'll use our test match as an example. Earlier, I mentioned that the law wants innings is to be alternatively. So side A go bat in their first innings. When, let's say, side A gets dismissed, then side B needs to go bat. They get dismissed. Then side A go bat again in their second innings. And then after they are dismissed, side B now go bat in their second innings. That's what the law wants. But the law allows for, and this is the criteria that needs to be in place, where the law actually allows for a captain to ask the other side to go bat again. I'll explain what this means, and I'll use an example to illustrate what the law means. So in a 2 innings match of 5 days or more, and today, these days, we don't get more than 5-day cricket anymore. I know back in the day, there were 8 days of cricket. There were sometimes, I know in the 30s or 20s, there were unlimited days. You'd play until there's a winner. But these days, the playing condition states test matches 5 days or more. Other competitions have less, but in our test match, it's 5 days. So law then allow the side in our 5-day test match, if a side that batted first and that side lead by at least 200 runs in the first innings, that side shall have the option of asking the opposing side to go bat again, to follow on. I'll use an example to illustrate how this law works. So I'll use our test match as an example. So in our test match, let's use actual countries. I'll go India. India bat in their first innings. India scored 600 for the loss of 4 wickets when India decided to declare, and we'll get to declaration in a slide or two, but just for the purpose of this example. So India, let's say 600, and let's say they get bowled out for 600. Let's leave declaration. They are bowled out for 600. Now South Africa goes into bat. And South Africa gets dismissed in their first innings for 350 runs. So now India scored 600, South Africa 350 in their first innings. So now this law allows, if the lead in the first innings is at least 300 runs, it is at least 200 runs, the captain of India has the option to ask the captain of South Africa to follow on, i.e. to go bat again in their second innings. So in our example, with India scoring 600 in their first innings, bowling South Africa out for 350 in their second innings. So the question you need to ask yourself, is the lead at least 200 runs? In this case, yes, the lead is 250 runs. So there is the option for the Indian captain, or what we call in cricketing terms, to enforce the follow-on, to ask South Africa to go bat again in their second innings. The option is there. The Indian captain does not have to exercise the option, but the option is there. Because the lead is at least 200 runs, the option is there. And if the Indian captain decides to exercise the option, the EOC can then ask the South African captain to go bat again in their second innings. So now it will be India batted their first innings, scored 600. South Africa in their second innings scored 350. Because the lead is more than 200, or at least 200, captain has the option to ask South Africa to go bat again in the second innings. The Indian captain decided to exercise the option, and so South Africa will now go and bat again in the second innings. Not all games are played over 5 days. In South Africa, we do play under provincial cricket over 4 days. So there, the minimum lead needs to be 150 runs in the first innings. Same principle applies as I did explain in 5-day cricket. Same principle will apply in whether it's 3 or 4-day cricket. Similarly, if it's a 2-day match, there the lead needs to be only 100 runs. And if it's a 1-day match where side play it's played over 2 innings, there the lead needs to be 75 runs. Before I get to point number 3, in terms of notification, if the opposing captain decide to exercise the option of asking the other side to follow on, if that is the case, then as soon as the captain decides to exercise that option, asking the other side to follow on, that captain will then inform the umpires, who in turn will inform the opposing captain. And once the decision is made to either, yes, I want the side to follow on, or no, I don't want the side to follow on, as soon as that decision is made, once notified, it then cannot be changed. Point number 3 refers to if the first day of play is lost. So what happens if it rains the whole of the first day? And if I can use our test match as an example. So the emphasis is here on the whole first day's play is lost. So if no play took place on the first day of our test match, and only on day number 2 the first ball gets bowled. If that is the case, no play took place on day number 1, and now our test match only starts on day number 2, so there are now 4 days remaining in our test match. So now the law tells us, because the whole of the first day was lost, the follow-on lead now needs to be 150 runs, because now our test match will span over 4 days. And if I can go back to our previous slide here, we saw in point number 2, if a captain wants to exercise the follow-on option, the lead needs to be in a 3 or 4 day game 150 runs. So if the whole of the first day is lost in our test match, it will now be a 4-day test match. Now for captain to exercise the option of having the other team to follow on, the lead needs to be 150 and not 200 if it was a 5-day test match. But here the emphasis is on the whole of the first day play needs to be lost. It must be the first day. It cannot be, let's say, in our 5-day test match, play starts on time on day 1. We play the whole of day number 1. Now day number 2 is rained out. Day number 3 is rained out. And now play only resumes on day number 4 and play is on day number 5. So now, because yes, we lost 2 days of play, we're now not going to say, because we lost 2 days of play, this is now a 3-day test match. And what is the number for 3-day test match? It's 150. So our follow-on lead needs to be 150. No. In this case, it will stay 200 runs. The lead will stay 200 runs for the captain to enforce the follow-on. And the reason is the law is clear. It must be the first day's play that is lost. It cannot be the second or third or fourth day's play that's lost. Only if the first day's play is lost, or let's say 3 days are rained out, first, second, and third. So you only play, our test match will only be on day number 4 and day number 5. Now it's a 2-day test match. So what is our minimum lead for a 2-day game? If I go back to our previous slide, it will be 100 runs. The last law that I'm covering for this evening, before I hand over to Tom, it covers declaration and forfeiture. When it comes to a declaration, captain of the batting side, and only the captain of the batting side may declare an innings closed whenever the ball is dead, and it needs to happen during that innings. So example of this, uh, um, Sri Lanka in their first innings scored 700 for the loss of 3 wickets. Batting captain at the time feels 700 is enough. Captain then has the option, yes, only 3 wickets are down, to declare the innings. So batting captain will then inform the umpires and the opposition captain that he or she is declaring the innings. So we saw earlier, so as soon as a captain declares an innings, that means that particular innings is completed. So in terms of a declaration, it is always there. It's an option for the captain of the batting side. He or she may declare the innings at any time whenever the ball is dead. When it comes to a forfeiture of an innings, here the law allows, again, a captain may forfeit either of his or her side's innings at any time before the commencement of that innings, and a forfeited innings shall be considered to be a completed innings. We don't see this often in cricket these days, but it is part of the laws. It is an option. If a captain wants to forfeit his or her side's innings, and that forfeiture needs to happen before the commencement of that particular innings, it is in the laws, it is an option. And this usually only takes place if there are inclement weather around. Captains would want to forfeit the innings to get a result in the game. And as soon as a captain either declare or forfeit an innings, once that decision has been made, that decision then cannot be changed afterwards. I mentioned earlier that forfeiture doesn't happen that often, especially at international level. The last time I actually saw it happen was in a test match in 2000, which was between South Africa and England. And there again, because due to inclement weather that was around, there was decided by the two captains at the time, which was Ansi Cronje and Nasser Hussain. They decided there's lots of rain in the test match, and they decided to forfeit the innings and to make a game of it. England won the test match, but it later became news that this game was actually fixed. It was a big case at the time with Ansi Cronje was found guilty for match fixing. And this particular test match, because of the match fixing that took place between Cronje and a bookmaker, this particular test match was actually scrapped from the record books. So you can go check the records. You won't find the January 14 to 18, 2000 test match anywhere in the official records of test match cricket. Tom, thank you so much. That is my section for the evening. I'm now handing over to you to cover laws 16 and 17. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, and good evening to the candidates and you. As Abdullah has mentioned, I will be taking you through laws 16 and 17, after which we shall go through to our questions and answer sessions. There will be a couple of videos, so I just need to share, including sound. So bear with me while I do that, and we shall be on our way. Law 16 is the result. Abdullah has talked about innings and completed innings, and we need to remember those definitions in terms of how and when a result is achieved in a game of cricket. First one we'll look at is a win in a 2 innings match. So that's 2 innings per side. When does a team achieve a win in a 2 innings per side match? Let's see what the law says. The law tells us that the side which has scored a total of runs in excess of that scored in the 2 completed innings of the opposing side shall win the match. And the key phrase there is 2 completed innings. So if a side is not all out, nor have they declared their innings, nor have they forfeited an innings, then a innings is not complete. Okay, we will get into more detail in further slides. What about a win in a 1 innings match? And here we can think of one-day internationals. We've just had a one-day international cricket World Cup completed. And we know that in 1 innings per side matches, there are often limits to the length of those innings. In one-day internationals, it's 50 overs maximum per side. So how is a win achieved? The law tells us that the side which has scored in its 1 innings a total of runs in excess of that scored by the opposing side in its 1 completed innings shall win a match. So if we take the one-day international cricket World Cup final between India and Australia as an example, India batted first and they scored, I think, 223 runs in their allotted 50 overs. They were not all out, but that was a completed innings because they took 50 overs to bat, which was the maximum allocated. And Australia reached the target score within the 50 overs. They were not all out. I think there were 4 wickets down. And by scoring more runs in their innings than India scored in their completed innings, Australia won the World Cup final. Can an umpire or umpires award a match to a side? Let's see what the law says. The law says that regardless of any agreement under 13.1.2, the number of innings as described by Abdullah earlier, a match shall be lost by a side which either concedes defeat or, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. If so, the umpire shall award the match to the non-defaulting side. Have we ever seen an example in international cricket of a side refusing to play? Yes, unfortunately we have, and there is a video that I will share describing this scenario in detail. Law goes on to say that if an umpire considers that an action by any player or players might constitute a refusal by either side to play, then the umpires together shall ascertain the cause of the action If they then decide together that this action does constitute a refusal to play by one side, they shall so inform the captain of that side. And if the captain persists in the action, the umpires shall award the match in accordance with 16.3.1 in the slide before this one. So let's have a look at the first and only time that an international match has been decided by the umpires awarding a match to the non-defaulting side. Abdullah, please let me know if there is no sound on the video. Thank you.
Over the last 140 years, more than 2,300 test matches have been played. Over 1,500 of these have ended in a result. Over 700 have been drawn, 2 have been tied, and only 1 has ended in a forfeit.
The thing I remember about the forfeit test is none of us had a clue what was going on, really.
According to law 16.3.2, a match shall be lost by a side which, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. On August 20, 2006, this rule was invoked for the first time on an afternoon that swung wildly between high drama and farce. An hour before tea on the fourth day, at the end of the 56th over of England's second innings, umpires Darrell Hare and Billy Doctrove asked for a change of ball.
It was one of the reserve umpires came out with a new box of balls. It was clear they were changing the ball. No big deal there. But instead of asking the bowling side to choose the new one, he asked the batting side, and you think, oh, hello, interesting.
The umpires then awarded England 5 penalty runs, confirming that they had pulled Pakistan up for tampering with the ball. The trouble was there was no evidence, no jelly, no dirt, no sandpaper.
A lot of people that looked at that ball have different opinions. Some feel it was clearly tampered with, and some think it was more than just playable. It was a good-looking ball. Others think you can see some evidence of scratching, but none that suggests it's been done on purpose and by hand, or even by a foreign object. So very mixed views.
It was after the tea break, taken more than 15 overs, after the 5-run penalty, that things really escalated. The umpires walked out, the English batsmen walked out, the Pakistanis didn't.
They felt hugely wronged, you know, they weren't sure that whether they wanted to come out.
After waiting for 20 minutes, the umpires walked to the Pakistan dressing room, came back a few minutes later and took the bails off.
And the match is aborted or abandoned or cancelled or no, wrong, none of that. We hear the match has been awarded to England. Wow.
That wasn't the end of it either. After a protest lasting almost an hour, and following discussions with match referee Mike Proctor, Inzamam Ul-Haq finally leads the Pakistan team out again. This time, though, the umpires stay put. They've made their decision, and they're sticking by it.
My view of that was that it was very inflexible. Mike Proctor was the match referee in a very difficult position. I think there should have been an instruction from on high, from the chief executive or chairman of ICC, that this is a unique situation because of the unproven circumstances. In a proven circumstance of a tampered ball and a side refusing to come out, fair enough, but this was unproven.
Several hours after the bails were taken off, the ICC and the English and Pakistan cricket boards confirm in a joint statement that the match had indeed been forfeited. The hits kept on coming. With no evidence to back up the accusation, the ICC dropped the ball tampering charges. But Inzamam was banned for 4 one-dayers for refusing to lead his team out. They also removed Hare from international duty, who in turn threatened to sue the ICC and the PCB for racial discrimination. 2 years later, the ICC overturned the result from a Pakistan loss to a draw. But the MCC refused to recognize this.
It was all incredibly nasty and another stain on the game, and there's never been any concrete proof that Pakistan were in the wrong anyway.
To date, this remains the only scorecard in history to state England awarded the match, opposition refused to play. In the end, though, there was only one real loser: cricket itself.
Two things to take out from that incident. As umpires, we need to be very careful in accusing a team or a player of changing the condition of the ball, also referred to as ball tampering. We need to have concrete evidence before we do that. And then secondly, if a team does refuse to play, we need to listen to their reason for refusal to play and try as best as possible to convince them to continue playing, even if it's under protest. And then only if they still refuse shall we award the match to the non-defaulting team. As you can see there, it caused nothing but negative press for the game of cricket. So let us all, as far as possible, try and not ever award a match to another team. So we've gone through 3 results up to now. One was a win on a 2 innings per side match. The other was a win on a 1 innings per side match. The third was a umpire or umpires awarding a match to a non-defaulting side because the other side refused to play. So what about a tie and a draw? And we need to be very careful as to knowing what the difference is between a tie and a draw. Let's see what the law says for these definitions. The result of a match shall be a tie when all innings have been completed and the scores are equal. The important phrase here is all innings have been completed. Okay, Abdullah has taken us through when an innings is completed. In a tied match, all 2 in a 1 innings per side match, or all 4 in a 2 innings per side match, innings need to have been completed and the scores equal for the results to be a tie. Lastly, a draw is when it is not determined in any of the ways stated previously, which seems rather vague, but we see a lot of draws in test match cricket. So let us have an example of a drawn test match. Zimbabwe against England many years ago, I think it was 2004 in Bulawayo, and we're going to watch the last over of the test match. England need 13 runs to win, and Zimbabwe need 5 wickets to win, because why? At the start of the over, England is in the 4th innings of the match, which is the last innings of the match. England are 5 wickets down. So there's very little chance of Zimbabwe winning the match, but they are trying to force a draw by defending the target score and not letting England to get to that score. Let us watch the last over for 5 minutes, and then I will discuss why this match ended up in a draw and not a tie.
Heath Streak will be the bowler. England can be smiling at the end of this over. They need 13 runs to win this match. Zimbabwe in no hurry. Campbell's going to make sure that every corner of this boundary is patrolled. Streak tonight.
On boundary, anything could happen.
Down the leg side. Perfectly legitimate today. One ball gone with no runs scored.
One-day cricket, it would be illegal. In Test cricket, it's quite legitimate. So they bowled very well, Heath Streak, and particularly Guy Whittle, I think, who came on. And the game was probably still in England's favour, but used to have dragged it back and bowled very well.
Knight's got it out to long off. Darren Gough prepared to sacrifice his wicket, but he's got back for 2. Flower, the fielder, making sure there'd be no overthrow, allowed England back for 2. I think Zimbabwe will settle for that. That's what Knight's looking for. He's chipped it over his head for 6. Unbelievable. Nick Knight's got his streak away over mid-wicket for 6 runs. Now England are back in it. England now need 5 runs to win off 3 balls. The England supporters are going crazy.
5 or 3 balls. Does he leave everyone on the boundary, or does he bring someone in?
Nick Knight, the hero of the hour now. That 6 runs has made all the difference. Have a look at this.
If you keep firing it in the same area, the batsman will eventually be able to adjust, and that's what's happened here. Nick Knight, 92 not out now. 1-6-5-4s. And that has changed everything. 5 runs now needed from 3 balls.
A lot of critics of one-day cricket, but that shot would never have been played in a Test match 15 years ago. Here's Streak tonight. England require 5. It's wide outside the off stump. No signal from umpire Ian Robinson. England now requiring 5 off 2. How does Heath Streak feel?
That is a wide. Sorry, that is a wide.
Full toss. Knight can only get it away for 1. Gough will definitely come back for the 2nd run. He's made it with a dive. Streak can't take the ball cleanly. England scramble 2, 3 to win off the last ball. We've seen one-day finishes all over the world. We've never seen a Test match finish like this. Now, the batsmen are in conference. The big 3 for Zimbabwe in conference. Campbell has told the bowler what to do. He goes out onto the boundary edge. Andy Flower wishes Heath Streak good luck. Nick Knight takes a few deep breaths. England need 3 runs to win off the very last ball to win this Test match. Can Nick Knight conjure up another boundary? One feel it has to be a boundary now for England to win this match. Here comes Streak. Knight's down the track, he's got it out to deep cover, there's a man there. This too will bring the scores level. Andy Flower's got it, Darren Gough vainly goes for the 3rd runs. The scores are level, but the match is drawn. England finished tantalisingly. 1 run short. They couldn't get to the final run. Nick Knight finishes on 96 not out. What a Test match day we've seen here in Bulawayo. England finish just 1 run short. Controversial tactics from Zimbabwe as they fire the ball wide either side of the wicket. I'm sure England would have done the same thing in their situation. This is Test match cricket, remember. Zimbabwe have fought all the way and out of the fire have salvaged a draw.
Right, so let's have a look at the scores. You'll remember that the target for England to win was 205. They achieved 204 for 6 wickets, that 6th wicket falling on the last ball. And from Abdullah's definition of a completed innings, was England's last innings completed? No, it was not. Only 6 wickets were down. For a completed innings, you need 10 wickets to have fallen. That is why the match was a draw and not a tie. If that wicket that fell on the last ball was the 10th wicket of England's second innings, then all 4 innings would have been completed, and that would have been a tie because all 4 innings would have been completed and the scores would have been level. But because all 4 innings were not completed, the result of the match was a draw. I hope you all understand the difference between a draw and a tie in modern day cricket. Winning, hit, or extras. Quite often it happens that a batter who is in needs, say, 4 runs to reach their milestone of a century, but the team only needs 1 run to win the match. So a clever batter will attempt to hit a boundary and will make sure that they do not complete a single before the ball crosses the boundary. In that way, they will add 4 runs to the team total as well as their own total, and they will get to their milestone of 100, and the team will win the match. If, however, that batter, having hit a cover drive towards the boundary, ran, crossed with his or her partner and completed the run at the opposite end before the ball reached the boundary, then that single would have counted. The team would have won the game because they only needed 1 run to win, and the boundary would not count because the match had ended before the ball crossed the boundary rope. So just be careful when you are umpiring close to the end of a match. If a team only needs 1 run to win and the ball is hit towards the boundary, you need to check whether the run is completed before the ball crosses the boundary. If that is the case, then you will not signal boundary 4 or boundary 6, whichever the case might be. You will simply take off the bails because that is the end of the match, and the scorers, seeing that you have not signaled boundary 4, will record the 1 run needed to win the match for the batter and the batting side. How do we state a result? Law tells us that if the side batting last wins the match without losing all of its 10 wickets, the result shall be stated as a win by the number of wickets still then to fall. So, as mentioned, the World Cup final, Australia reached the target with 4 wickets having fallen. The number of total wickets that need to fall for a batting side to be all out is 10. So 10 minus 4 is equal to 6. That is the number of wickets that Australia won the World Cup final by. So the statement of that particular match result was Australia won by 6 wickets. If the side fielding last wins the match, the result shall be stated as a win by runs. So apologies if I've got the total wrong, but I think India scored 223 runs in the World Cup final. If Australia had scored 220 runs all out, then India would have won the match by 3 runs. How do I get to 3? 223 minus 220 is 3 runs short. So India would have won the match by 3 runs. If the match is decided by one side conceding defeat or refusing to play, as we saw in the first video, the result shall be stated as match conceded by Pakistan or match awarded to England. in that particular match. What happens if there are mistakes in scoring? We hope that this doesn't happen, but if it should, how do we as umpires handle it? Law tells us that if after the players and umpires have left the field in the belief that the match has been concluded, and then the umpires subsequently discovered that a mistake in scoring has occurred, which affects the result, then the umpire shall adopt the following procedures. If when the players leave the field, the side batting last has not completed its innings, and either the number of overs to be bowled in the last hour or in that innings has not been completed, or the agreed time for the close of play or for the end of the innings has not been reached, then, unless one side concedes defeat, the umpires shall order play to resume. So we will go back onto the field, and the batting side will need to score more runs, or the fielding side will need to take more wickets to win the match, whatever the case might be. Unless a result is reached sooner, play will then continue, if conditions permit, until the prescribed number of overs has been completed and either time for close of play has been reached or the allotted time for the innings has expired. No account shall be taken of the time between going off and the resumption of play. So that time won't be considered as lost. We will still need to play as much time as was remaining when we went off the field for the first time, thinking that the match had been completed. Once the umpires have agreed with the scorers the correctness of the scores at the conclusion of the match, the result cannot thereafter be changed. Okay, so in Western Province Cricket Association club cricket matches, both scorers will fill in a match card and both captains will sign both match cards with the result of the match written at the bottom of the match card, of both match cards. And once those match cards are signed by both captains, then the result of that match cannot be changed. Last law for this evening before we go into our questions and answer sessions is the over. Abdullah dealt with parts of the over earlier this evening. I'm going to go into more detail. How many legal deliveries make up an over? I'm sure you all know this. Yes, you're correct. The ball shall be bowled from each end alternately in overs of 6 valid deliveries. When does an over start? An over has started when the bowler starts his or her run-up, or if he or she does not have a run-up, when his or her bowling action for the first delivery of that over begins. When does the bowling action begin? It begins when the back foot of the bowler lands. Let us look at what constitutes a delivery that is not valid. Law tells us that a ball delivered by the bowler shall not count if it is called dead or is to be considered dead, and we will deal with dead ball on Wednesday, before the striker has had an opportunity to play that delivery. If the ball is called dead in the circumstances of law 20.4.2.5, which is the dead ball law, that is when the striker is not ready for the delivery of the ball and pulls away, or 20.4.2.6, the striker is distracted while receiving a delivery, then that ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over, even if it is bowled. If a ball is a no ball or a wide, no ball will also be covered on Wednesday and wide will be covered next week, Monday. That ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over and shall need to be rebowled. There are other instances when a ball that has been bowled will not count as a legal delivery in the over. Such examples are player returning without permission onto the field and coming into contact with that ball. We shall deal with it in Law 24. That ball will need to be rebowled. When there is illegal fielding, which we will deal with in Law 28, that ball needs to be rebowled. Law 41 is not covered in the level 1 Cricket South Africa umpiring course because it's not examined in the level 1 exam. But if there is a deliberate attempt to distract the striker or a deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of a batter when a ball has been delivered, then we will call and signal dead ball. We will award 5 penalty runs to the batting side, and that ball will need to be rebowled. You can, through the presentation that has been sent to you via links, go through Law 41 and Law 42 on your own before, during, or after the course. And of course, a ball that is not delivered shall not count as one of the 6 balls of the over. Any deliveries other than those listed on the previous slide shall be known as valid deliveries, and only valid deliveries shall count towards the 6 balls of an over. When do we call over as umpires? When 6 valid deliveries have been bowled and when the ball becomes dead after the 6th valid delivery, the umpire shall call over before leaving his or her position behind the stumps at the bowler's end. Good umpiring practice is for you as the bowler's end umpire to wait for your partner to walk from striker's end towards bowler's end at his or her end, so that you can watch that players do not step into the protected area of the pitch. In fact, they should be completely off the pitch between overs. And also watch that players don't abuse each other while walking past each other. You always have the wicketkeeper and the slips walking from one end to the other, and they do walk past the batters who are in the middle having a chat between overs. There is always a chance of conflict during the change of overs. So we call it pitch policing that the bowler's end umpire needs to do. And only once his or her partner has arrived on the other side should they then move towards their position at striker's end for the next over to start. If I can please ask for all of you to mute your microphones. I have activated your microphones, but you do have the chance to mute them. Let me just mute everybody.
Thomas Abdullah, I've just muted the participant.
Thanks, Abdullah. After this law, we will be having questions and answers. So that is why I've activated everybody's microphones. But please keep them muted until you are given the floor to ask your questions. What happens if umpires miscount in an over? If the umpire miscounts the number of valid balls, the over as counted by the umpires shall stand. What does this mean? This means that, or what does law allow us to do to maybe correct our errors? Law says that if, having miscounted, the umpire allows an over to continue after 6 valid balls have been bowled, he or she may subsequently call over as the ball becomes dead after any delivery, even if that delivery is not a valid ball. So let me give you an example to illustrate this point. So we've bowled 6 legal deliveries, but the umpires have miscounted. Then the next ball that is bowled is a no ball. And I'm sure we all know that after a no ball, that ball, because it's not a valid delivery, should be re-bowled. However, after that no ball, we get a shout from the scorers, or we get a shout from our partner confirming that, hang on, that was actually the 7th ball in the over. We have already bowled 6 legal deliveries. So law allows us to not re-bowl the no ball and call over after that no ball. So it's going to look very unprofessional for you to call over after a no ball, but law does allow us to almost correct our first mistake with another mistake by not allowing a re-bowling of the no ball and calling over after that no ball, which was the 7th delivery in the over. All very embarrassing. You do not want to miscount. So practical tips for umpires not to miscount. We quite often at club level signal to our partner when there are 3 balls left in the over. It is halfway in the over. So the signal is halfway, as I am currently depicting. 2 balls left in the over, we signal 2 up in the air, and we do not need to be discreet about it. We can show it for everyone to see. When there's 1 ball left in the over, a simple 1 to the side, but please don't stick your hand out far out, because that looks like a no ball sign. Some umpires point downwards for their 1, as I am depicting now. As long as your 1 is clear and obvious to everyone, including your partner, and does not look like an out sign, okay? We also, whenever there is a no ball, a dead ball, or a wide ball in the over, we reconfirm how many balls are left in the over. So if there's a no ball bowled in the first ball of an over, there are still 6 balls remaining. The signal used internationally for 6 balls remaining is a closed fist. So that is 6 balls remaining in the over. 5 is simply 5 out wide. And then 4 to differentiate 4 from 5. Normally we put our hand close to our shirt, okay? You can also put it out there if your hand is the same color as the shirt. You won't be able to see it. So you can put 4 out there. Just be very clear that it's 4, not 5. 3, 2, and 1 I have shown you. sounds ridiculous that we need to help each other count from 1 to 6, but on a very hot day, when there are lots of no balls and wides in an over, and even when there is a wicket or 2 wickets in an over, or maybe even more, that is when we tend to miscount. So also at the fall of a wicket, please do reconfirm with your partner how many balls are left in the over. If you disagree with your partner as to how many balls are left in the over, it does not look great, but you can stop the game and shout to the scorers and ask for the scorers to confirm how many balls are left in the over. As village as that looks, it's much better than allowing an extra ball, because that extra ball will count if it is bowled. And if a batter is dismissed on the 7th ball of an over when there shouldn't have been a 7th ball in the over, you can guarantee a very upset batter after the game, telling you that you have just about ruined his or her career. Can a bowler change ends? And I saw this was a question raised earlier in the chat box. So this is the simple answer. A bowler shall be allowed to change ends as often as desired, provided that he or she does not bowl 2 overs consecutively, nor bowl any part of each of 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. Okay, so to answer the question that was in the chat box, no, player A who bowled 4 wides in over number 1 and was taken off by his or her captain cannot bowl over number 2, because even though they were not legal deliveries, the law tells us that an over starts when a bowler starts his or her run-up, or in the absence of a run-up, enters his or her delivery stride. Even though that bowler bowled 4 wides, they did start an over by running up. Okay, so that bowler is not allowed to bowl any part of the following over. When does an over finish? Law tells us that other than at the end of an innings, a bowler shall finish an over in progress unless he or she is incapacitated or suspended under any of the laws. So to go back to that question asked in the chat box, a captain cannot take off a bowler simply because they are bowling poorly. Okay, so after those 4 wides, if the bowler or if the captain wanted to take the bowler off, you as an umpire would say, is the bowler injured? And the captain would say no. So then law tells us that the bowler must complete that over, because he or she is not incapacitated, nor has he or she been suspended for that over or that innings. Coming back to the last point under number 6, can we, and I'd like answers in the chat box, please. So let's go to South Africa against India in a test match, Boxing Day at Centurion. India score 600 and are bowled out, and then South Africa come in and bat, and South Africa is bowled out for 350 runs, and that first innings lead, 600 minus 350, if my maths is correct, is 250. So India can enforce the follow-on, and Rohit Sharma, captain of India, decides to enforce the follow-on. Now, the last over of South Africa's first batting innings was bowled by Bumrah, Jasprit Bumrah. My question to all of you is, can Jasprit Bumrah bowl the first over of South Africa's second innings when they are following on? Okay, read point number 6 again, and please type into the chat box. Jasprit Bumrah has bowled the last over of South Africa's first batting innings. South Africa ended 250 runs short of India's first innings total of 600. Rohit Sharma, captain of India, enforced the follow-on, so South Africa are batting again. The question is, can Jasprit Bumrah bowl the first over of the second South Africa batting innings? Yes or no? Coming back to finishing an over, if for any reason other than at the end of an innings, an over is left uncompleted at the start of an interval or interruption, it shall be completed on resumption of play. As Abdullah mentioned earlier, if a wicket falls in a test match at 11:58, the fourth ball of an over, we will not let the next batter come into bat. We will take lunch. Lunch shall be of the agreed duration of 40 minutes, and we will come back at 12:38, 40 minutes later, and that bowler will have to complete his or her 2 balls of that over which are remaining. Let's look more into a bowler incapacitated or suspended during an over. What happens then? Law tells us that if for any reason a bowler is incapacitated, and that means injured for those who don't understand that word incapacitated, while running up to deliver the first ball of an over or is incapacitated during an over, the umpire shall call and signal dead ball. We will deal more with when an umpire calls and signals dead ball on Wednesday. If a bowler is incapacitated or suspended during an over, another bowler shall complete the over from the same end, provided that that replacement bowler does not bowl 2 consecutive overs nor bowls any part of 2 consecutive overs in that innings. Okay. So that is my lot for this evening. Thank you very much for your attention. Abdullah, we've finished up at 19:33 today. Someday we'll finish up at 19:30. Continuous improvement is part of every umpire's career desire. So thank you. We shall now go into the chat box, see what questions have arisen during the presentation. And if you still have any questions after we've dealt with the questions in the chat box, then you are welcome to raise your hands and we will take live to air questions. So Ruben, Kumar, I have answered your question. Let me just repeat it for everybody's attention. Player A comes to bowl the first over of the match, but he bowls 4 wides without bowling a single legal delivery, and then the captain decides to change the bowler. Player B bowls the first over. Can player A bowl the second over from the other end? So as mentioned, Ruban, no bowler can bowl 2 consecutive overs or any part of 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. This, what you are saying, is definitely part of the same innings. So no, player A cannot bowl any part of the second over from the other end. And as I mentioned as well, a captain may not take off a bowler just because the bowler is bowling poorly. The captain can only change the bowler if the bowler is incapacitated, injured, or suspended during an over. Please, can I ask that everybody mutes their microphone? I'm getting feedback at the moment, just to make the meeting run smoother. Next question is from Halvin. Abdullah, I'm going to ask you to come in here. This is to do with the last over and ground weather and light. What happens if the bowling team slows the game down and by 1700, which is supposed to be our close of play on the final day, the bowling side is only bowled 15 overs in the last hour? Remember that law tells us that we need to bowl 20 in the last hour. After these 15 overs, there is bad light. Does the batting captain have an option to continue batting, Abdullah?
Alvin, this is exactly the reason why the lawmakers decided to bring this last hour law into the game, because prior to this, especially if the batting side is close to getting a winning target and the fielding side wants to bowl as little overs as possible to the batting side, the lawmakers then saw fielding side starting to slow the game down, and it prevented the batting side from reaching their target. The lawmakers then brought in this law about bowling a minimum number of overs in the last hour. So in our test match, that spans over 5 days, our last hour is only on the 5th day, and it will be from 4 o'clock until 5 o'clock. So if I can use law as an example, so at 4 o'clock, when the last hour started, law wants the fielding side to bowl a minimum of 20 overs in the last hour, a minimum. So let's, before I come to your example, let's say the fielding side was went quick through the overs, and we get to 1650, and now they've completed 20 overs. What do we do next? So yes, they've bowled their minimum overs for the last hour, but we have not reached our cessation time yet, because our cessation time is only 5 o'clock. So in this case, yes, we've bowled 20, but we need to play on a further 10 more minutes until 5 o'clock until we reach our cessation time. But in your example, and which often happens, especially if the winning team is close to winning, and that's why this law was brought in, the fielding side would often slow the game down. So now the lawmakers brought in this law by saying, in that last hour, we want a minimum of 20 to be bowled. No matter how long it takes, we want that 20 overs to be bowled, obviously weather and light permitting. But we'll get back to light in a minute or two. So let's say we get to 5 o'clock and they've only bowled 15 overs. Play will continue. The fielding side must bowl a further 5 overs. We need to get to a minimum of 20 before play is concluded. So even if they get to 5 o'clock and they've only bowled, for argument's sake, 10 overs, play will continue for a further 10 overs. They must bowl a minimum of 20 overs in the last hour. Yeah, so I see you added, there's a bit of bad light around, and this is where the umpires needs to be proactive. So last hour starts again, a minimum of 20 needs to be bowled. We will continue if we get 5 o'clock, and we will play a further 5 overs. With bad light being around, there are other punishments that we can deal out if the batting team is, the fielding team is slowing the game down, and if, let's say, bad light is imminent. Those are covered in Law 41, which we will go into detail in our level 2 and our level 3 course. But I hope I've answered your question with regards to if we get to 5 o'clock and they've only bowled 15, play will continue. It's not an option of the batting captain to decide, yes, I want to continue. Law tell us play will continue until we've bowled 20 overs minimum. So let's say we get to 20 overs bowled and it is now 17:24. That is when we will stop play. Tom, did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think if there is bad light, Abdullah, and the umpires judge it to be unsafe, then what would happen then?
Yeah, then the decision for bad light is for the umpires alone to make. And if the umpires do decide that play has now become, light is too bad for play to continue, umpires will then suspend play and will then take the players off the field. So even though only 15 overs have been bowled, but bad light has set in, it became dangerous for play to continue. Hence, umpires decided to take players off the field. If the light do get better, umpires can come back on, and there are playing conditions for international and provincial cricket and some club cricket that allows for a bit of extra time to be played. And if light do get better, we can come back. But if this was the laws of cricket, and we've reached 1700 hours, and we've now need to go off the field due to bad light, and that is a decision that the two umpires alone made. Then unfortunately that would be the end of this game. This match would then be concluded. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. I think it's important to add that many years ago, the batting side had the option to carry on batting in bad light. That is not the case anymore since the law changes of 2017. Bad light is determined by the umpires and umpires alone. And if they decide that the light is dangerous or unreasonable for play to continue, then they will suspend play. Playing conditions for Test match cricket and provincial Morday cricket in South Africa, I'm sure around the world as well, they do give the fielding side the option to bowl spin. If the fielding side decides to take up that option, then they will bowl spin until it is decided by the umpires that it's dangerous or unreasonable, even for spin to be bowled. Okay, the batters do not have any say in whether they want to carry on batting or not in dangerous light. Next question is from Balachandra. It's actually a comment on the toss. He says that in international matches, umpires are not present at the time of the toss. Only the match referee is present. Balachandra, that is actually incorrect. Yes, the match referee does actually speak at the toss to both captains. What you won't see, or who you won't see at the toss, is the fourth umpire in an international match. The fourth umpire is also present along with the captains and the match referee, and the fourth umpire often helps just to ensure that the call by the away captain was heard and confirmed by the match referee correctly, and that the toss is won by the side who either guessed correctly, or if the away side did not guess correctly, then the home side wins the toss. So as per law, the A umpire is present at a toss for an international match. Question from Professor Atik Rahman. If the Indian captain does not want to enforce the follow-on because the wicket is tricky and he or she does not want to bat last on that tricky wicket, does this apply to 3 and 4-day games and 2-day games, Abdullah? Or does the follow-on law only apply to 5-day matches? Professor Atik, that is how I've interpreted your question. Please raise your hand if I have misinterpreted it, and you can speak about it yourself.
Prof, the follow-on law applies in all more-day cricket, whether it's a 5-day test match, whether it's a provincial 4-day match as in South Africa. I know some provincial cricket spans over 3 days. I know there are club cricket that spans over 2 days, and we often find 2 innings matches that spans over a day. But if that is your question, that particular law applies in any form of cricket: 5, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, and 1 day. If that is your question, I think I saw Prof hands raised. So, Prof, if is not, fine. If we interpret your question incorrectly, can you just please guide us if that is not if our interpretation was not correct? Over to you, Prof.
Yeah, it's fine. It's correct. I got it, what you said. Fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Abdullah. Right. Next question is from, sorry, my chat box has just moved to the bottom. I'm now scrolling back up to see what our next question is. Adam Davids asks, on Saturday, one of our players was not due to hitting the pitch, so the other captain wanted to forfeit the game due to this. Do they lose the game or do they draw the game? Adam, I'm not clear on what you mean by one of our players was not out due to hitting the pitch. I think, Abdullah, what happened here is the umpires gave one of Adam's teammates not out because he hit the pitch. He didn't hit the ball. It was caught. There was an appeal. Umpire said not out, probably a player umpire. Always big discussions and arguments when player umpires are overseeing matches. And because of the not out decision, the fielding captain wanted to forfeit the game. So Adam's question is, if they had walked off the field, would the umpires have awarded the game to the batting side, or would they have considered the game a draw?
So Adam, sorry, Tom covered this law earlier, and there is a law that that allows for the umpires to award a match to the opposing side if that particular side refuses to play. So in your example, if the captain refuse to continue playing, the umpires would have gone to that particular captain, asking the captain, are you refusing to play? The umpires would have informed the captain of the law, because if you do refuse to play, there is a law that says umpires then to award the match to the other side. So in this instance, if your captain stuck his or her ground and says, yes, we refuse to play, we're not going to play, the umpires will then apply the law and award the match to the opposing side. Always in these type of circumstances, Adam, my suggestion is, because there's a law in play, and as soon as you refuse to play for whatever reason, even if you have a legitimate reason, never refuse to play. Continue playing. You can afterwards write a report to the governing body. The governing body can then investigate the circumstances for this particular incident, and the governing body can then decide what to do with regards to the match. But in terms of on the day, because as soon as a captain refuses to play, the standing umpires, and after the umpires chatted to the captain, and the captain then still insists, I am refusing to play, the standing umpires does not have a choice then to invoke the particular law by awarding the match to the other side. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. The next scenario is from Shah Murad Qureshi from Pakistan. Shah, thank you very much for your scenario. It is a scenario that covers hitting the ball twice. It's a scenario that covers obstructing the field. It is a scenario that covers dead ball. So those three laws are still going to be dealt with. And we do ask that the questions asked should be related to the content and the laws that are presented on each night. Otherwise, we could go on forever with questions about every single scenario in cricket. So Shah, please keep this question for later laws. If we have not answered the question by the 7th lecture, which is our revision lecture, then you can ask the question again. And on the 7th lecture, which is our revision lecture, we will answer any question under the sun, and we will stay all night long as we need to answer all questions. Okay. Next question is from Professor Atik. Can you show video of a tied match as an example? Professor Atik, as far as I know, there has never been a tied test match in test match history. We all are aware of the 2019 50-over World Cup final between New Zealand and England ending as a tie. Both innings were completed because both teams batted for 50 overs, and the playing conditions for international one-day international cricket and T20 international cricket is, in the event of a tie, super overs will be played. In a test match, there are no super overs, but as far as I know, Abdullah, I'm not sure if you know of a tied test match.
Yes, Tom, I've read a stat a while ago. There were, in the history of the game, only 2 tied test matches. I don't know exactly, the numbers, but I know in the history of test match cricket, only 2 tied test matches. It was quite a while ago. I think one was in the 1980s and one was in the 1960s or 50s, but only 2 in the history of test match cricket.
You're quite right. It was actually mentioned in that clip about the forfeited match between Pakistan and England, that there were two tied test matches in the history of test match cricket. But as you've mentioned, Abdullah, those were before our time in terms of watching cricket. And unfortunately, Prof, we don't have any footage of those matches. Renshaw, who is a scorer for Belleville Cricket Club here in Western Province Cricket Association Club Cricket. She says, as per this season, we use digital scorecards now, and the captains do not sign anymore, but the scorers submit the digital scorecards to Western Province Cricket Association. So after that submission is done by both scorers of each team, then the result can no longer be changed. Thanks for that heads up, Renshaw. Stephen and AD. AD says, my name is AD and I am under 11. Can I, if a captain declares or refuse to play? AD, do you want to elaborate on that question? Dula, can you make sense of it?
No, Tom, I can't.
Right, AD, if you're still with us, please put your hand up and we will give you the floor to explain your question. Next question is from PJ Lombard. If an umpire miscounts and on the 7th delivery, the batter gets bowled, is the batter out, Abdullah?
PJ, let me start by saying, yes, we sometimes do miscount, but it is of utmost importance that we do get our counting spot on, as to not to get you in a position where a batter gets dismissed off the 7th ball. So firstly, try your utmost to make sure that you do get your counting spot on. At international and provincial level, we can consult the reserve umpire, or in a televised game, the on-field, on occasions, do go to the TV umpire just to double check. There's also scoreboards that can, big scoreboards at the ground that can assist you. What I often do at club level, just to make sure that I do get my counting right, if there is a discrepancy between the two on-field umpires, I show my colleague 2 and my colleague shows me 1, or I show 2, my colleague shows 3. I take 2-3 seconds out of the game. Yes, it looks maybe sometimes a bit village, but I do ask one of the players just to quickly ask the scorers how many balls left in the over. Literally, it happened to me this past Saturday in a club game. Difference of now how many balls left between the two umpires. It literally took us 5 seconds. It was a small ground, so we could ask the point fielder to quickly ask the scorers, just ask them how many balls left. They confirmed 2 balls left. 5 seconds later, everyone was happy and we got our counting spot on. So now to answer your question. So now you've miscount and you've allowed a 7th ball to be bowled. Anything that happens off that ball will count. If a batter gets dismissed, that dismissal will count. Yes, it is the 7th ball, but you've miscounted. That dismissal will count. Similarly, if a batter scores runs off that 7th delivery, those runs will also count. So batter dismissed will count. Runs scored off that 7th delivery will also count. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Just to answer Travel Desk while we are on this topic, if a no ball or a wide is bowled on the 7th delivery, that no ball or wide will also count in terms of runs added to the batting team's total. However, if we realize that we have bowled more than 6 legal deliveries, we will call over and we will not re-bowl the no ball or the wide. I see AD is on screen. AD, please unmute your microphone and ask your question about refusing to play. I hope you want to play, AD. You shouldn't be refusing to play, eh?
Yeah, but I just want to know, because if something like that happens and we are playing a 35 over, am I allowed to refuse or dismiss play?
AD, I think Abdullah has mentioned it, that us as umpires should always encourage teams to play and not refuse to play. We should hear what reason they might have for wanting to refuse to play, but we should encourage them, even if they feel that they are being done wrongly for whatever reason. If their opposition is cheating or suspected of cheating, play the game under dispute, but carry on playing. Do not refuse to play, because if the moment you refuse to play as a team, as a captain, then the match is awarded to your opposition and you have no comeback after that. Okay, so please,
Okay.
AD, keep playing the game. Don't refuse to play. Okay.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for your question, AD. We will take more questions with hands after we've gone through the rest of the questions and comments in the chat box. Diamond says that he is residing opposite Centurion Supersport Park, one of my favorite grounds to umpire. He feels very educated and thanks the organizers for the lecture. You're very welcome, Diamond. You've got no excuses not to join Titans Cricket Umpires Association if you haven't yet done so. You're close by. Once you pass your level 1, I will give you all the contact details to join them and start your umpiring career. And someday you won't be watching the match from the stands. You will be in the middle officiating in a match at the beautiful Supersport Park. Next question is from Pradeep. And I think, Abdullah, you've already answered this. How do you ask in between overs how many balls are left? So I mentioned that you should always signal to your partner whenever there's a no ball, a wide, or a dead ball in the over, just reconfirm how many overs left. If there is a wicket in the over, also reconfirm how many overs are left. And Abdullah has also told us that if you don't agree with your partner, then you should just ask the scorers. Stop play for 5 seconds. That 5 seconds will make sure that the rest of the game goes ahead without any glitches. Okay. Now, next question. Diamond asks, in simple language, please repeat how the bowler can change hands. So can he bowl with the left hand, one ball, and then can he bowl right hand, the next ball? We spoke about batters changing from right hand to left hand. Are bowlers allowed to change, Abdullah, from left hand to right hand? As I welcome load shedding in Claremont, Cape Town.
And you probably noticed I'm suddenly in the light, so our lights just went on in Mitchell's Plain, Western Cape, South Africa. So Tapiwe, when it comes to the bowler changing hands, and we will cover it when we do Law 21, the no ball law. Law tells us that a bowler can change hands as often as he or she desires, i.e. can either bowl with the left hand or bowl with the right hand. as often as EOC desires, but there's one important thing that needs to happen. The bowler, before switching hands, must inform the umpire. So usually what happens at the start of the over, when the bowler comes to you, the bowler will then hand his or her cap to you. After handing the cap, the bowler will then inform you right hand or left-handed and over or around the wicket. If the bowler doesn't tell you, you as an umpire need to ask the bowler, bowler, are you left-hand or right-handed? And whether you're going to bowl over or around the wicket. That information, you as umpire needs to relay to the batter. Because after the bowler's given you that info, you need to inform the batter. Batter, this is a left-handed bowler, and he or she is going to bowl over the wicket to you. Or it's a right-handed bowler, and he or she is going to bowl around the wicket to you. So let's say that's at the start of the over. After bowling 2 balls with the right hand, now the bowler wants to bowl with the left hand. The law allows for it, but the law now wants the bowler to inform the umpire that I am now going to bowl with my left hand. The umpire, after the bowler is informing him or her that he or she is going to bowl with the left hand, will now inform the batter, the striker, that this bowler is now going to bowl left arm round or over the wicket. So when it comes to the bowler, law tells us bowler must inform the umpire whether when he or she is going to change hands, and the umpire then in turn needs to inform the the striker. So that's a law when it comes to the bowler. When it comes to the batter, and especially when it comes to switch hitting and reverse sweeping, there's no such law in place when it comes to batters. So if a batter wants to switch it, doesn't have to inform the bowler that he or she wants to switch it or reverse sweep. No such law when it comes to batters. I know lots of bowlers say this is a batter's game. I tend to agree somehow. There's lots of things that are well agreed to, and that's one of the things. But as the law currently stands, bowler must inform umpire when he or she is going to change hands. I hope I answered your question, Tapiwa.
Lovely, thanks, Tula. I've got some light going, so we can carry on. I see there's a lot of yeses. I did ask the question while I was presenting of Jasprit Bumrah bowling the last over of South Africa's first innings batting innings. And then because South Africa were bowled out for more than 200 runs less than India's total, Rohit Sharma enforced the follow-on, so South Africa were batting again. My question was, can Rohit Sharma bowl the last over of South Africa's first innings and the first over of South Africa's second innings? And only one person got it wrong. Okay, law tells us that a bowler cannot bowl any part of 2 consecutive overs in the same innings, but there is no restriction about the next innings. Okay, so 99% of you were correct. Jasprit Bumrah can bowl the last over of South Africa's first batting innings and the first over of South Africa's second batting innings. Okay. So well done to most of you. A viewer asks, can we explain the case of Johnny Bairstow referencing to the call of over? We all saw it in the Ashes Test match between England and Australia at Lord's, where Australia's wicketkeeper Alex Carey ran out or stumped out Johnny Bairstow at the end of an over. Was it over? Was it not? Did the umpires call over? Was the ball dead? I'm happy to announce that we've got it scheduled as one of our videos to assess and analyze and talk about during the next lecture on Wednesday, which involves the dead ball law. Okay, so we will deal with it under Law 21, Law 20 of UA, dead ball on Wednesday. So tune in on Wednesday for that full scenario, please. Next question is from Mozam. What if the wicket falls and the night watchman batter gets in and he was about to take guard, but he could not due to rain starting, and the day is called off due to heavy rain? So the next day in the morning, does that night watchman have to come out to bat, or can the batting side send another genuine batter in instead of the night watchman because the night watchman wasn't required and did not bat? Abdullah, has that night watchman's innings started on that night?
Ali, the law guides us here. The law tells us that the innings of the incoming batter starts as soon as he or she steps onto the field of play. So as soon as he or she puts their foot across the ropes and enters the playing area, as soon as they steps onto the field of play, that is technically when the innings started. The innings does not start when you take guard, nor does it start when you first when you faced your first ball. According to the law, it starts as soon as you enter the field of play. As soon as you put your foot over the rope, that's when it started. So in your scenario, that night watchman, his or her innings technically started. Why? Because the night watchman put his or her foot over the boundary rope, was actually on the field of play. Hence, technically, that innings has started. So, the next morning, the night watchman needs to come out and face the first delivery of the day, because the innings of the night watchman has started. If just from another angle, if the night watchman did not step onto the field of play, then you can say that innings hasn't started. Then they could have used the let's say the number 3 bat.
Apologies, Abdullah. I just had to mute everyone. Apologies, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure when you muted me, but just to summarize, Ali, just to confirm again, innings of the night watchman starts as soon as UC puts the foot over the rope. So in your scenario, the night watchman innings technically started because UC was on the field of play, and hence the night watchman must face the first delivery of play the next morning. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Abdullah. Last question for now in the chat box. Again from AD. AD talks a lot about stopping the game and not wanting to play. I'm not sure what's happening in his young cricketing career, but he writes, if an umpire gives a batter out, but that batter does not think it's out and does not walk, what do we as umpires do then? Abdullah?
ID. Players needs to respect the umpire's decision. As soon as the umpire made a decision, whether right or wrong, players needs to respect the umpire's decision. So in your scenario, umpire gave the batter out. that batter needs to leave the field of play as he or she is out. Whether he or she thinks they're not out, that's irrelevant. They need to respect the umpire's decision. The umpire gave him or her out. They need to leave the field of play. There are code of conducts that covers various competitions across the world, and there's a word called dissent. If the batter refuses to walk, the umpire can report the batter for showing dissent at an umpire's decision. But in your scenario, batter's been given out. That batter needs to leave the field of play. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. We've covered all the questions in the chat box. So I am now going to go over to the hands in the meeting room that are up. Thank you for your patience. First hand up, Asif Masood. Please unmute your microphone. You may switch on your camera as well. The floor is yours to ask a question related to tonight's laws, please. Asif, are you still with us?
Yes, good evening.
Hi, Asif, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, yes.
I'm speaking from Qatar.
Welcome.
Yeah, I want to ask that whether your course is accepted by Qatar Cricket Association or not.
Very good question, Asif. So I mentioned on the first lecture that I have been selected by the International Cricket Council as a ICC umpire master educator in charge of the Africa region. All 18 of us umpire master educators around the world went for training in Dubai in May this year. And the ICC umpire master educator for Asia, there are 4 of them. One of them is from Qatar. Shivani is her name. So I will contact Shivani and I will ask her if Cricket South Africa's level 1 umpiring course is accepted as an entry level to start umpiring in Qatar and recognized as a qualification that can get you to umpire at maybe higher levels if you do level 2 and level 3 with us. So I don't have an answer for you yet, but I will touch base with Shivani, and by Wednesday, I will let you know, Asif. Our course, as I mentioned in the first lecture, is Cricket South Africa accredited, and Cricket South Africa is a full member of the International Cricket Council. So by definition, it is accredited by the International Cricket Council. So I see no reason why another cricket playing country in the world would not recognize Cricket South Africa's courses. However, unfortunately, there are politics in our game, which sometimes people don't want other countries' qualifications to be worth anything in their country. But I'm sure, I hope there won't be any restrictions in Qatar. I will confirm for you by Wednesday latest. I hope that answers your question for now, Asif.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom.
You're welcome. Next hand up is Adam Davids. Adam, please unmute your microphone and the floor is yours.
Hi, Tom and Abdullah. Listen, yesterday we had a game. The batter A nicked the pitch, but the captain, the opposing captain, appealed. So we, our umpire, as player umpire, so they gave it not out. So the captain said no, he wants to forfeit the game. But then the batter either decided he's not gonna forfeit, he's rather gonna walk off the pitch, retired hurt. So that's so that the game can continue.
Sure.
So
That's
now
interesting.
my answer is, if the captain had to forfeit, who claims the points? Do we, team A or team B?
That would have been the fielding captain that would have forfeited the game, right?
That's
Adam?
correct. Yes. That's correct.
So then the batting team would have been awarded the match, or at least on the scorecard, you would have written that the the fielding team forfeited the match, and then the match would have been awarded to the batting side. It is a little bit tricky when you have player umpires. I think at Western Province Cricket Association, you would have had to have put in a report, and the matter would have been referred to the local leagues committee to make a decision. But as per the laws of cricket, if a team forfeits a match, then the non-defaulting side, or the side which didn't forfeit the match, is awarded the match as victory. I hope that answers your question, Adam.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
I would like to encourage you and your team to always try and complete a match, even if you are in disagreement with the opposition. You can play under dispute and file a report to Western Province Cricket Association after the match, but rather complete a match, because it has happened in the past where a team refused to play on certain grounds, and the local leagues committee of Western Province Cricket Association threw that case out because the match was not concluded. The team forfeited, so the match was awarded to the non-defaulting side. Okay. Great. Ladies and gents, I don't see any new questions in the chat box or comments. I don't see any new raised hands. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your attendance and your interaction. We always enjoy taking the questions after the presentation. I hope you've all learned and enjoyed this evening's lecture. We shall reconvene on Wednesday, same time, same place, different link. I will send out that meeting link tomorrow. I will also send out a link of the recording of tonight's lecture. Have a good evening further. See you on Wednesday. Thank you and goodbye.
See you, Tom. Thanks a lot, Tom and Abdullah.
Cheers, NSC,
NSC.
ICC Africa up and coming umpire. Well done on your appointment for the women's T20 qualifying competition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.